Hey everybody, our first reading is Tartuffe. It's really become one of my favorites, so I hope you enjoy it too. I don't want to tell you too much about Tartuffe because I want you to get a chance to get to know him for yourself, but I will introduce you to the author. We call him Moliere, but his real name is Jean-Baptiste Paquette. I know I probably butchered that last name, but I'm just glad we can call him Moliere. And he was born in 1622 and died around 1673. He was considered one of the great comic dramatists of his time. I mean, some people even say that where Shakespeare was to the English language, then Moliere was to the French language. So many of his plays point out some kind of folly or flaw in a character. And he wrote about characters who were misers, middle class, females who were striving to be intellectuals, which at that time wasn't really acceptable, hypochondriacs, and religious hypocrites, which is kind of what we'll read about this week. Moliere not only discusses the imperfectness of these characters that he wrote about, but he also refers to the foolishness of trusting reason to arrange human affairs. He was the son of a prosperous merchant in Paris, and he had a Jesuit education, so he had a very strict education, and he studied law in school for a while. But around 25, he gave up his well-to-do life to become an actor. Many times back then, actors weren't real popular, so you kind of had to give up everything in your family. They would disown you if you went into acting. And so he toured with a French company. We'll call it the Paquette company. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right either. But for about 12 years. And then in 1662, he married the daughter of one of the Paquettes. It's likely that Moliere's time acting enhanced his ability to write plays and dramas as well. Even though he's well known for his comedies, he was considered a great dramatic writer. According to the Norton Anthology, Moliere's particular talents, it would soon become clear, lay in satirizing an overly sophisticated society that was heavily invested in fashion, appearance, and proper behavior. In other words, he made fun of them, and he over-exaggerated to prove a point about what they were doing or not doing or the way they were trying to live. His skepticism about religion and the hypocrisy of that institution caused a lot of controversy back then because the Catholic Church was kind of the ruling religion and they controlled a lot of other things or had their hands in a lot of other things. So they weren't real happy for him to be talking about or scrutinizing or satirizing the religious people of the time. King Louis XIV was in power and was considered, let's say, to have stretched the ideas of the religious rights the kings had. He also became an appreciator of the arts, though. And so the best thing you could have happen as an acting company was to have a king or queen, in this case king, to support you or to endorse you or to ask you to come act for them. And so Louis XIV really did appreciate Moliere's acting company and invited them to come and perform for him and to perform at other functions he sponsored. So they performed, their first play they performed was called The Highbrow Ladies. With the support of the king, Moliere's acting company that he now ran himself became very successful. And even though he faced opposition about the irreverent nature of the way he treated religion, the king still supported him, so he kind of felt untouchable maybe. And he supported him financially, and he protected him from the censorship of the church and the conservatives that lived in the society. He wrote over 30 plays, and he produced even more. He died a few hours, actually, after performing a play he wrote called The Imaginary Invalid. One particular play that seemed to cause much controversy and opposition was Tartuffe. It was written in 1664, and it used the comic devices of plot and character to create entertainment and also a somewhat contentious play because it had some criticisms of religion. As a matter of fact, Tartuffe was so clearly addressed and it so clearly addressed the religious piety of the day that the Catholic Church pressured King Louis XIV to ban the play. So somehow Molière was able to work it out so he could perform it one more time, and he actually got it published before he got in too much trouble. So in the play, Tartuffe is described as one who wears a mask, which you'll see as you read the play. The play also alludes to this erotic, psychic, and economic power. There's a lot of different types of power that you see here. And people use these things to create their masks. And that's kind of part of what I think Molière was trying to say in the play. Even though he says that he's mocking the misuse of faith rather than the religious institution itself, which would have been, like I said, the Catholic Church at the time, it's easy to see why the church would have thought differently. And another topic that might not have been quite as controversial back in the 1600s as it would be today is the role of women in the family and in society. Like I said, he often kind of satirized the fact that women were trying to be intellectuals because they could be, they were, but that wasn't something that was accepted in society back then. And so you'll see a little bit of that in addition to this whole idea of satirizing the religious institution in the play. While the plot of the play suggests that women are beneath men, it ultimately shows that women saved the day. You'll see that too. Molière uses style and language to achieve his comedy in the play. In many comedy plays, the outcome is usually a resolution and restoration. In other words, they have lived happily ever after. And so he leaves the reader thinking about the effects that a man like Tartuffe can have on their lives as they had on the lives of the characters in the play. As with many characters we see in television or in the movies, Tartuffe is a guy that everyone loves to hate. So I have a feeling that there are many people who felt that way about Molière also. So I hope you enjoy the story, the play. It's a play. But I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have an opportunity to look and to see some of the satirical parts that he wrote. And also just to think about how this applies to us today, because just like many of the readings that we'll read, I think that once we sit back and think about it, we all know or have seen or have read about a Tartuffe recently or somebody in our lives. So I hope you enjoy the story, and let me know if you have any questions. Have a great week.